So what most people think they know about 80-20 is that 80% of your money comes from 20% of your customers. And that is true. But it's also true again and again and again and again. 80% of the 80% of 80% of your money comes from 20% of 20% of 20% of your customers. And it's not just customers. It's virtually everything in business runs on 80-20 math. So 1% of your product line produces 50% of your sales. 1% of your customers produce 50% of your sales. 1% of your salespeople produce 50% of your sales. 1% of your product defects produce 50% of your returns. 1% of your complainers produce 50% of your support tickets and your bad reviews. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And so the reason that I figured out Google AdWords way back at the beginning was because I looked at my Google AdWords account and I go, the thing you do to make this work is 80-20. This is really just 80-20. And then we did it in Facebook, then we did it in TikTok, then we did it in all kinds of other things.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Welcome to the Play Your Position podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lou Kaiser, author of The River Only Runs One Way and The Far Unlit Unknown. 2 books available right now at your favorite online book retailer. Check them out and make them your companions on the next leg of your leadership journey. If you're new here to the podcast, welcome. You are in for a real treat today. You are going to hear my conversation with one of the OGs of the internet, Perry Marshall. And if you are a long-time listener, you know I love you. Welcome back. Let me tell you a little bit about Perry. He is undoubtedly one of the most experienced internet marketers of all time. If there's ever an Internet Marketing Hall of Fame, he would be inducted in the first round. I remember way back in the 2000s, crossing Perry's path. I was just getting started as an online business builder. This was long before this podcast was even an idea, let alone a full show. And I remember thinking how smart he was then. And let me tell you, he's even smarter now. You will hear him talk about those early days online, how he got involved, how he positioned himself with Google AdWords. He even wrote a book about it. And then he recognized that hitching his brand to a platform he didn't own was not a great idea. So he branched out. He's written a ton about how to market and sell online, including 80-20 Sales and Marketing, the definitive guide to working less and making more. You all know how much I love a good book title. This is exceptional, and what's inside will blow your mind. So you're going to want to get this book. Perry has consulted across more than 300 industries. He is a very popular speaker at all kinds of conferences. He has been instrumental in shaping the $400 billion digital ad space. He is the founder of the $10 million Evolution 2.0 Prize and co-founder of the Cancer and Evolution Working Group. Perry's insights bridge the worlds of marketing, science, and entrepreneurship, making him a must-listen for anyone seeking growth and innovation. And Team PYP, if that doesn't describe you, I don't know what to tell you. You can find Perry on his website, perrymarshall.info, and also on LinkedIn. Links to connect with him and get his books are in the show notes. Be sure to connect with him and let him know you heard him on the Play Your Position podcast. All right, team, are you ready for kickoff? I know I am. Let's go. How are you today?
Just another day of mystery, suspense, and intrigue, as usual.
I love it. I love it. Where are you calling me from today, Perry?
Chicago, you?
Okay, about 50 miles east of New York City.
East of New York City.
Yes, out on Long Island.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I was in Long Island a year ago.
For what reason?
I was hosting a one-day event in New York City and participating in some cancer research science that I'm involved with at Columbia University.
Oh, how interesting.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask what?
Yes, of course.
What is the cancer research you're involved with?
So this is a major part of my life. I wrote a book called Evolution 2.0, which is over my shoulder here.
Okay, I see it up there.
I'm co-founder of a organization called the Cancer and Evolution Working Group, which has 5,300 scientists. And we define cancer as the cells of your own body evolving out of control.
Okay.
And we have members of our group who have figured out how to detect cancer at stage -1.
Wow.
There is a incredible individual at Columbia University named Azra Raza. She's a Pakistani oncologist who she has built the largest tissue repository of cancer patient tissues in any private collection in the world. She has 60,000 patients' tissues that she's collected by hand herself. And we are working to get those properly studied. There isn't any government program or research grant that is suitable to study those tissues. And so, yeah, for the last 5 years, I've been doing that. That's about a third of my life is in science. So so that's why I was staying at a hotel in Long Island.
Okay.
And went across the river and went to some parties and Columbia Hospital and all the rest.
Sure. Well, that is an interesting corner of your life that I didn't know about, because obviously this is what I know most. And I'm sure that's what most people know you for, Perry, is your book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing, which I was talking to somebody earlier and they always are asking, well, who's on your podcast today? And I said, his name is Perry Marshall and he wrote this book. And I think that I sat in on some of your webinars back in like 08, 09 vintage. We're going back 15 years. At the time, I was involved with a direct selling company and we were trying to learn how to leverage the internet to grow our team and get the word out about these amazing products that we had. And it turned out that our company, parent company, put the kibosh and said, you guys can't do that. It's not fair. I remember you from that. And then when you popped up as a guest for me, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. I mean, here we are 15 years later. So let's just dive right into this. You bet. And I'm obviously surmising here that this is probably what you're most known for in the internet space, right? You got involved early on, before Google was really a thing, before YouTube, before any of what we have today.
Yes.
And so I would like you to set the stage for us. And I always start with having my guest tell us about when you first got the call to leadership. I imagine it was prior to the internet marketing scene, but maybe not. But give us your story about you entering and becoming a leader in internet marketing.
Well, I'll take a kind of a weird angle to this today that I think will be really fun. So when I was 20 years old, I was a college student in Lincoln, Nebraska. I had just gotten married and I had a job working in the warehouse at W.W. Grainger, which is a pretty well-known wholesale company. They've got branches all over the United States.
Sure.
And the boss was out of town that day, and one of the other guys and I were feeling a little mischievous, and we decided to play a practical joke. And the Omaha branch was just 50 miles down the road, and we decided to type up a fax and send it to him. And the fax said, from the CEO of Grainger, Mr. Keyser, to all branch managers. And it said, dear branch managers, Grainger stock has suddenly and inexplicably plummeted from $63 a share to $17 a share, and we will be closing all branches effective Friday. We wish to thank you for your years of service and dedication, and we will attempt to meet payroll for the current week. And so we put it in the fax machine and we sent it to Omaha, and we waited for them to call us and say, ha ha, guys, very funny. And the phone didn't ring, and we waited and we waited. And finally, 45 minutes later, Tony calls them. Well, we just ruined our joke because, like, you don't call people and say, did you see my joke?
Right.
And the guy goes, oh, that was you? Well, Brenda pulled that off the fax machine and she went into hysterics and she started calling her family. I've had my job for 12 years and I'm losing it. And we didn't really know what to think. So we faxed it to Des Moines, and they didn't really know what to think. So they faxed it to Sioux City, Iowa, and they didn't really know what to think. So they faxed it to Fort Smith, Arkansas. Well, would you care to guess what happened when my boss came back the next day?
Bye-bye, Perry.
Bye-bye, Perry. Bye-bye, Tony.
Tony.
And so that was how I got fired for the first time from a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to call my father-in-law. Hey, Ron, a really funny thing happened the other day, and I got fired from my job. So, it's a really hilarious story, but it sent me into a tailspin.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was a fairly good job as part-time college jobs go. Now I'm scrambling around looking for another job. The next job I found wasn't nearly as good, and I didn't like it. And I was in summer school, which goes very fast, and I started failing a class because I was all distracted, and so I had to drop the class. And so up until that point, I had defined success as never get fired from a job and never fail a class. And now I had just done both, and this really kind of messed with me. Well, the reason I decided to tell you this story as an answer to the call of leadership is this started a long series of dominoes that I think it probably took 10 or 15 years for me to look back and go, that was a major turning point in your life in several respects. So one of them is later that summer, I got invited to an MLM meeting. And I became an Amway distributor, which is really kind of a long, sordid, sad tale of not accomplishing much of anything. Okay. But
no disrespect to Amway.
I would have never even considered something like that had I not had that experience of being fired. Because if you go to any MLM meeting, they're gonna give you the shtick about the 40-year plan, and you could get fired at any moment. And I'm 20 years old and I'm listening to all this and I'm going, yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
And so it pushed me way out of my comfort zone and got me to consider sales and marketing and entrepreneurship in a way that I never would have before.
Yes.
And then a realization that I had much later. So if you fast forward 2005, I've been teaching Google Ads for a year or two, up at 2 years, I guess. The internet is starting to catch fire. And I was having a conversation at a speaking training workshop. And somehow they dug this story about Grainger out of me. And somebody points out, they go, so Perry, what year was that? And I go, 1990.
Yeah.
And he goes, that was your first experience in electronic viral marketing. Well, yeah,
Interesting.
it was.
Yeah.
And that's what got me in trouble. And I learned something that I have used this ever since. I've used it with myself, with clients. Your superpower is what got you in trouble.
Yep.
Like every time. Like if
I like that.
if you love to tell stories, you might have gotten in trouble for being a gossip. And if you like to write, you got in trouble for something that you wrote. And if
Raising my hand.
if you're an extrovert salesperson, you got in trouble for talking in school. And we could go on and on. I mean, really, everybody needs to do an inventory of what has gotten me in trouble? Like what has gotten me in serious hot water? There is a superpower, whatever that is. And of course, the real challenge of adult life is harnessing your superpower. Like I learned the hard way. Fortune 500 companies do not have a sense of humor about stock prices or closing all the branches. They did not. In fact, I found out that fax made it all the way to the person who allegedly sent it. Of course it did.
Of course it did.
But,
yeah.
I was 20. What did I know? So that was really my call to leadership, and I stumbled into multiple versions of, oh my goodness, bologna sandwiches and ramen soup and baked potatoes and salsa and credit cards and trying to learn how to sell and pounding the pavement and making cold calls and like all of the things.
Yeah.
But it started with that getting myself in trouble.
I love that as an exercise for listeners to take a few minutes and think about when you got in trouble as a youth. Could have been in elementary school, like you were saying, or maybe it was a little bit later, like you were middle college, 20 years old. But there is absolutely a through line there somehow. And maybe for people who are in a place of trying to figure out, what am I going to do next? Maybe that's your answer, is go back to that time when, what was it that you kept hearing from your teachers, from your parents, from the neighborhood, adults? Not that that happens as much anymore, but it sure did in our youth, when communities looked out for each other and was like, do you know what your kid was up? Anyway, so that's a really interesting story. So you had experience in direct selling with Amway, MLM. It's also known network marketing. And a lot of people cut their teeth in sales and marketing through one of these kinds of companies. I mean, we could list them all. Amway's one of the more well-known. It's one of the oldest, but Mary Kay's been around for a long time. I think Avon is still chugging along, but I'm don't quote me on that.
Right.
I was mentioning to you that when I first came online in 2007, I saw the potential of like, oh my gosh, because I was with a direct selling company. I was in a nutraceutical company at the time. And I thought, this is how we do it. We start putting videos up and everything. And the parent company did not have a sense of humor, as you just said, and told me and one of my team members, you will not do this. You stop. Cease and desist, basically. We got their version of that letter saying you will not use YouTube. You will not use internet marketing. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And I just remember scratching my head going, why? Well, now fast forward today, guess what? Those products are sold on Amazon. The biggest e-commerce in the planet, right? So my point is, you got into the second wave of the internet after the dot-com boom. Those of us who were around remember 99 to 01 was just this magical time of the internet was going to explode and companies were valued at these ridiculous amounts, and then everything came crashing down. And then there was a little bit of a lull, but 03, 04, when some of the giants that we now know, Google being one of them, started to ramp up. You happened to be there. So tell us, for those of us everybody who's listening was around when this happened, when Google came on the scene, when Apple, Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone and apps and all this stuff. Tell us about this part of your life, Perry. You've been a leader in the internet marketing space. It is a mystery to so many people of how do you spread the word about your amazing company, your amazing product, and not get taken to the cleaners, right? In your book, you talk about how you've helped many companies save millions and millions of dollars over the years in ad spend because of some of these incredible systems and frameworks and formulas, which I cannot explain at all. It's not my wheelhouse. So team, 80/20 Sales and Marketing, The Definitive Guide to Working Less and Making More by Perry Marshall. That is the book that Perry wrote. It really is the Bible still, all these years later. It's been endorsed by like every name under the sun, from Dan Kennedy, the late Dan Kennedy, who was a master copywriter, to I don't even remember the names. I just remember looking at this list going, oh my gosh, wow. So with that lead in, tell us more about this world you've operated in for as long as you have, the internet marketing world.
Well, first, let's understand how it has changed and the ways in which it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, it isn't.
Because there's a lot of people selling it based on what it was 5 or 10 years ago. Yeah. And so here's what it's not anymore.
Okay.
It is no longer the place where it's easy and cheap to go get a customer for not very much money just by writing a few ads and tweaking a few landing pages. It's much harder than that. And advertising alone is not a sufficient secret to make it work. You have to have a distinctive, unique selling proposition where when a person says, why should I, in my situation, give you money instead of anybody and everybody else? You need a real answer, and you need to, for whatever your answer is and whoever your ideal customer is, you need to be the number one person in that market, which probably means it's a very, very narrow slice. You cannot be all things to all people. Absolutely, it will not work. Amazon is all things to all people. Google is all things to all people. You can't be. Walmart is all things to all. You can't be. And you need to define yourself in a growing market where you are the leader. And that's like the 80/20 of the 80/20 of the 80/20. And it starts with your value proposition. What do you truly uniquely do? And the best way to answer the question is to ask, what do you uniquely guarantee? What would you put skin in the game that nobody else would? And so that requires a few steps. So let me tell you another little story that illustrates how I came to this. This was 2006. So we're a few years past that early stage. And now the internet is like on fire.
Yep.
And I had now been teaching Google Ads for about 3 or 4 years. And I decided to do a seminar. And I went to my mastermind group, and somebody gave me the idea. They said, hey, you're charging $1,500 for the seminar. Raise the price to $2,000. Apple has a brand new computer called a MacBook Pro. Give away a MacBook Pro and you will fill that seminar. So your offer is come to my $2,000 seminar, get a $2,000 computer and get 3 days of fantastic education. And it worked. And we had 300 people come to that seminar. And I bought 190 MacBook Pros, which the logistics of that is a story that we don't have time for. But here's like just a huge learning moment. Apple delivers all these computers to the hotel where we're having the seminar the afternoon before all the people show up.
Sure.
They put all these computers in a room and they give me a room key and they say, this is the room key for the room and this is the clipboard. And you need to sign this. And I look at the clipboard, and the clipboard says, the Hyatt Regency O'Hare Airport assumes no responsibility for the contents of this room. It's all on you. And I go, so I just spent $350,000 on these computers. They are worth more than my house. They are paid for. My house is not.
Yeah.
And if these computers get stolen, I am ruined. And you want me to sign something that says you're not responsible. And they go, it's okay, it's safe.
Famous last words.
If it's safe, you won't make me sign it.
Oh.
Okay, so let's stop right there.
Yeah.
And this is actually like most business to business transactions and many consumer, but let's talk business to business.
Okay.
Somebody sells you some software and they go, it's going to work great. Well, if we're 9 months in and nobody knows how to use it and it's crashing and all the sales reps are complaining and all, blah, 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 are we going to get our money back? No. Somebody is always taking the risk. And many times, salesmanship turns into this game of me pretending that I'm taking the risk, but actually you're taking the risk. I'm pretending your computers are going to be safe. So we had a standoff with the hotel staff. Well, the manager gets called in and the director of security gets called in. We're all standing there. We're all looking at this thing. I'm like, I'm not signing that thing. Oh, well, if there hasn't been an incident in 30 years. Well, if you believe that, then you won't make me sign it because you will show me by your reactions that you believe my computers are safe. Well, then they try to call legal and they're on the East Coast and they're closed for today.
Oh, jeez.
So my computers didn't get stolen, but I walked away from that going, I just embodied experience, learned with my own money, the hard way that somebody's always taking the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And this caused me to create something. This is a staple of my Planet Perry, what we teach people. The best way to figure out what your unique selling proposition really, really is, and who your customer really, really is this. It's a 4-step if, then, else guarantee.
Oh, okay. If, then, else.
If, then, else.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example of a program that we are selling right now for 2025. We are saying, if you are a business north of $1 million of revenue and you are in a growing market, so we do a 1-hour whiteboard session with the onboarding client to figure out if that's even true in the first place. And if it's not, we won't take them.
Right.
So I won't even do business with you if you don't get past the first if. And the first if is always, who are you and what is your problem? You have to be the right fit for me.
Of course.
That's the first if. And that defines who your market is. Is my market soccer moms? Is it Vietnamese potbelly pig owners or what?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Okay, the second if, and this is what's almost always missing, is a very clearly defined explanation of what the customer has to do to cooperate with our process. When we sell you this software, you got to do these 117 steps. You have to import all your contacts. Your IT department has to work right. Your salespeople have to enter the data, this, whatever it is.
Right.
You have to come to the training. If it's all installed. So the second if, it's all the things that a customer has to do that the vendor does not control, but the vendor can tell you, if you don't do all these things, it's not going to work. If you do all these things, it's going to work. So that then gives you your productivity is going to go up, the time it takes to enter an order is going to go down, whatever the efficiency thing is, we will guarantee that you get from X to Y. It'll go from 10 minutes to 3 minutes. It'll go from 10 seconds to 3 seconds. What? Or else, skin in the game, if you check all the boxes and you're the right person to begin with, and this doesn't do what I said it would do, then you get to call the CEO on their cell phone and bash their head in, or they have to give you your money back, or they have to give you 25% of your money back, or they have to send a SWAT team into your company to come and fix the problem or something. And when all that is laid out, there's two things that really just totally flip compared to a typical sales situation. The first thing is the customer does not feel like you are trying to ram something down their throat because you are meticulously qualifying them in all the way you are showing them this is what it's going to take for you to get what you want. And maybe the guy down the street won't tell you all that, but we do. And by the time you go through our process, you're going to have a whole bunch of questions that you never asked the other guy. And then when you go ask him, he's going to go, well, let me check with my sales manager. And then he's going to have to go figure all that out.
It's the Hyatt Hall syndrome.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
You are qualifying them and you are leading them towards what they want, but it's like, we have to go on this path or this is not going to work, which means all your P's and Q's have to be lined up. And most people, they've never sat down and actually figured out, you know what, when our clients install our software, it's 117 steps. And we require the IT manager and it requires the sales manager, and all the salespeople are going to have to use this software instead of using their cell phone, instead of sending an email. And if people don't do all that, they're not going to be happy. And we have to tell them all up front. And so it totally flips. It's not you doing a dog and pony show.
Right.
Okay. And then the second thing is the client knows that you are serious. And like, it wouldn't have to be 100% refund. It just has to be something where it's very clear that you are on the hook and you will be in pain if you lied to them or you misjudged the situation, because it's all about risk management. Everybody take a risk when money changes hands. Am I getting what you told me I was going to get? Well, so this will crystal clear define who your ideal customer is. It will crystal define all of the steps. It will also allow you to raise your prices because you can say, I am absolutely, positively, confidently sure that 9 months from now, you are going to be happy with this decision because we have this all mapped out.
Sure.
This so separates the men from the boys, it's not even funny. 90% of companies will never do this. And when I had my first sales job, which I eventually got fired from after 2 years.
So
I got fired from 5 jobs before I went out on my own. It was lots of torture and pain. The problem that I had with that sales job was I would go sell things, or I would get a customer where they are ready to sign on the dotted line, and then the manufacturer did not want to support what I was selling or what the customer was asking for, and the whole thing would come unraveled. And man, any salesperson, they have torn their hair out over not being backed up by management. And so now I'm talking to CEOs. If you build a value proposition like I just said, and this is described in the 80/20 sales and marketing book. There's a whole story about this.
Yep.
There's a chapter on it. If you define all those steps, you have the support that your salespeople need and that your customers need. Your salespeople will love selling for you because the customer is never disappointed. And when a salesperson knows that a customer is not going to get screwed, like when your customer got screwed last week and you're supposed to go out and sell to more customers? Yeah, right. With enthusiasm. Yes.
Yeah. Be grateful that you have this job.
No kidding.
Wow, Perry. So that is, first of all, so clear. You said that this is a product that you're selling for 2025. So,
oh yeah. I didn't finish that story.
I was going to say, so you set us up with this as a product you're selling. So who are you teaching this to? Are you teaching this to CEOs, leaders of companies? What if you're an independent person? Like, who is a good fit for what you're selling? I think a lot of anybody in business is a good fit for your book because
Yes.
first of all, you're very clear, you're very direct. You don't mince words. You don't sugarcoat. You make it obvious that if you do this and you don't do that, this is the consequence you're going to suffer. You want to do that? By all means, go do it. But my way is working, so you might want to try my way, right?
Well, here's how we're doing this with our roundtable members. So we have a mastermind group, and in this mastermind group for 2025, what we are saying is we're going to have a whiteboard session, and we're going to take your business apart and put it back together when you apply. And our question is going to be, can we make you number one in a growing market?
Mm-hmm.
So if you sell something for Vietnamese potbelly pig owners, are you the number one person in the Vietnamese potbelly pig market, and that we can grow this business over the next year? And if we say, yes, we can help you do that, then the fee is $39,000 for the year. And what we say is, we are going to have expectations of you.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to require you to check in every month, and we're going to track your progress, and we're going to track exactly what you're doing. And your coaches are going to tell you, so this is what you need to do with your advertising or your employee or whatever. And if you do that, and there's a number of other things, like there's a daily regimen. We are requiring our members to delete social media apps off their cell phone.
Oh, interesting. And may I ask just a quick answer why? Because I think I know, but I'd love to hear your answer.
People burn hours of time and, more importantly, mental energy on trivia and TikTok and politics and Twitter and Donald Trump and and whatever everybody's arguing about, and it chews up mental energy. So we say, you can use social media. You'll do it on your computer. You do it after 5 o'clock. You won't do it on your cell phone. You won't do it in the doctor's office, and you won't do it during your meetings because you're doing business. We require our members to spend 10 minutes in meditative time. We call it Renaissance time every morning.
I like
5
that.
days a week.
Yes.
You will start your day doing a spiritual practice every day, and you're going to sign that you will do this for the whole year. And then that, in the coaching and following the process, if you don't get what we believe that you could achieve by the end of the year and you did all that, we will refund 120% of your $39,000.
Wow, that's an amazing guarantee.
And so here's what
Have you ever refunded?
I've done similar guarantees for other programs and have had occasional refunds. Yes. Okay. And in fact, there's a story in the 80/20 sales and marketing book about a company that sold $4,000 valves for pharmaceutical equipment. And their guarantee was, if our valve fails or is not sterile or causes a problem, we will replace our valve with a competitor's valve, and we will pay for a union electrician to come and do it. And basically, it's a $40,000 installation cost if they have to make good on that guarantee. And they, on average, had to make good on that 4 times a year. So they were spending $150,000 to $200,000 a year servicing a guarantee, but they considered it to be a marketing expense.
Yes.
Because it did 2 things. First of all, it really got customers' attention. Like, you can grab them by the lapels and say, we believe in our product. It also forced them to get all of their P's and Q's 100% lined up. All of their manufacturing processes, all of it. And that means you have your crap together.
Yeah.
That means you can grow. That means you deserve the customer's business. And they went, now remember, pharmaceutical manufacturing is extraordinarily conservative. They went from nobody to 90% market share in 15 years. And in business to business, nobody does this. In business to business is almost like the hotel scene where they're like, well, I'm not guarantee what do you, well, in polite company, we don't do guarantees.
We don't do
They'll
guarantees.
give you this, stiff British sort of, well, we're above that. Well, we're not. So yes, sometimes we have to make good on guarantees. But then here's another thing that we found. We did this with another program that was less expensive. We would tell people, we don't think your business is big enough, or we don't think you're quite there. We are not comfortable making you a guarantee. And they would say, well, can I waive the guarantee and join anyway because I really want to learn? And they would sign a waiver that said, I am waiving my guarantee.
Yes.
I understand that I am a marginal customer. And what I always observed about those people, they were sitting in the front row of the class. They had their notepad out. They were ready to go. They were like, I need this. I am here to learn. Notice how totally different this is than getting hypnotized with NLP or whatever.
Yes.
Into
my
coming
God.
some seminar and having money levitated out of your wallet. My friend Tom Hubyar said, people come out of those trances eventually.
Yeah. It's such an interesting point of view to take because it's the opposite. It's the contrarian view is most people don't. First of all, most people don't take the time to really take apart their business. Most people, and I count myself in that. I mean, I've been in business. I've been a service business. For many years, I was working with first-time authors in the leadership realm, very narrow. I wasn't just anybody who wanted to write and publish a book. They had to be a leader in some capacity, and it was going to be nonfiction. And I had some success with clients. And when it came down to the contract, because we live in a litigious society, so you have to cover yourself, right, to a degree. But I always had that there are times when things just don't go according to plan. And we're going to agree that, here's what you need to do. Now, I wasn't nearly as detailed as what you're describing. And believe me, I'm listening. And I hope Team PYP that you're listening to, because as of this recording, we're at the end of 2024. We're coming into a new year. One of the things that's happening out there is the internet has come of age. So what Perry was describing earlier about the way the internet worked, those days are gone. They are gone forever. So you need to start embracing transparency, vulnerability, authenticity.
Yeah.
These are the things I'm hearing you talk about, Perry, without using those words. That good leaders are going to stand behind their product, their service, and say to their potential customers, we believe so strongly in this because we've reverse engineered from the end to the beginning. If you do everything, you're going to get the results that we promise. So what do you see of all the companies you've worked with, and you've worked with hundreds around the world, can you distill down to the top 3 problems leaders consistently are facing in business?
I just 2 hours ago, I did a webinar with one of my roundtable members. He's in the program that I just described. And Mark, the audience was riveted. You could tell from the chat that people were like, man, bring it on. This is good. And Mark was telling a real marketing story as opposed to a paper mache marketing story.
Yes, there are a lot of those.
And so a paper mache marketing story, it's like, well, you can now buy AI programs that'll just walk you through the paper mache. And it's like, well, I was a completely broke loser and I was picking my nose and I went bankrupt and then I suddenly discovered the secret. And then, and it's just so, it's a trope. It's just.
It's so 2007.
And my dear friend Megan Macedo says, most marketing stories are really shallow stories. So let me tell you what Mark, I'll kind of tell you his story. He was a financial planner making a lot of money. He was overweight. He had 1,200 clients and he was working 80 or 90 hours a week and it was completely out of control. He had too many clients. He wasn't able to serve them. A lot of them weren't really all that happy. and he was just medicating his life with food, alcohol, and steak, and he wasn't being honest with himself. And he was just running in the squirrel cage.
Yeah.
And as a result of a number of things, it was like several conversations and several gurus and conferences and kind of waking up. He had almost like an Alcoholics Anonymous moment where he realized this is completely out of control. And somebody talked to him and he said, stop doing a dog and pony show and go have an honest conversation with all your clients and prospects about their actual values. What do they want in their life? What do they value in their life? What do they consider important in their life? And just keep asking why. You'll eventually get to what money has to do with it and how to manage their money, but you have to understand their priorities first. He got rid of 90% of his clients.
Wow.
He cut his income by 75 or 80%. He cut his client base down to 17, from 1,200 to 17.
From 1,200 to 17. Wow.
Clients that they were more affluent and their values and his values exactly matched.
Yes.
And he serviced them to the hilt. And so it was like going cold turkey and breaking an addiction, going from 1,200 clients down to 17. And then he did such a good job serving the 17 clients that they would start referring people to him. And then he would have a disqualification process very similar to the if, then, else that I told you about.
Yes.
To make sure that he never took a client that wasn't a good fit. And he referred all those 1,200 clients to other people. And he sent them a letter and he met with them and he said, this person can actually serve you better than me. And he gave them away. And he built a much better practice where he was working 12 hours a day, 3 days a week, taking off Monday, taking off Friday, making good money, and having only clients that he liked that eagerly referred other clients to him. And this is what he now teaches. But the reason this is a real marketing story instead of a paper mache marketing story is because he used 12-step language several times when he was talking about that, because he had to break the addiction of being the hypnotized, robotic financial planner that's just telling him whatever Morgan Stanley tells you to tell him.
Right. The canned speech.
Yes.
Or the script.
And my advice for you in 2025 is, I don't think anybody's canned speeches work anymore.
No.
I have seen in the last couple of years, especially with AI being able to imitate all of those tropes, response rates have plummeted where I've got tons of marketing friends who are like, all the old tricks don't work anymore.
The old tricks. Oh, there were so many.
Well, this is why I had the conversation I've had with you today.
Yes.
Because if you can get to a like rubber meets the road, if, then, else, skin in the game, this is who I am. I have to understand exactly who you are. Is this a match? You're not chasing them around anymore.
Yeah.
And you're building an economic engine that attracts customers, because let's understand something. No matter how much marketing there is in the world, there are a lot of people who have very painful problems that nobody is solving.
True.
So I define marketing as the art and science of helping people who need each other find each other.
I love that. Say that again. Say that again.
It's the art and the science of helping people who need each other find each other. It's not sleaze. It's not manipulation. It's not convincing you to buy stuff you don't need. It's people solving other people's problems. That is what marketing is.
Yeah. Okay. So Perry, we are coming. I can't believe our hour is almost up. I would love for you to, gosh, I wish we had time for, you have such a good storyteller, and I love how you contextualize everything in such a specific and clear way. It's so helpful. for marketing, I know for a lot of people is very mysterious and people put a lot of time and energy into the wrong kind of marketing. You were talking about the social media apps, and that's like the lowest denominator, and it's the slowest, and it's just doesn't have a return. So there's one place a person could put their energy, resources, time into marketing. Where is it?
It's 80/20. And let me
It's
explain
80/20.
why. Let me
Okay.
explain why. So I really discovered 80/20 in 2003. I actually understood what it was. And before that, I didn't. I don't think most people really understand what 80/20 is.
I don't think they do. I learned a lot in this. I thought I understood it, but
So,
nope.
so what most people think they know about 80/20 is that 80% of your money comes from 20% of your customers. And that is true. But it's also true again and again and again and again. 80% of the 80% of 80% of your money comes from 20% of 20% of 20% of your customers. And it's not just customers. It's virtually everything in business runs on 80/20 math. So 1% of your product line produces 50% of your sales. 1% of your customers produce 50% of your sales. 1% of your salespeople produce 50% of your sales. 1% of your product defects produce 50% of your returns. 1% of your complainers produce 50% of your support tickets and your bad reviews. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And so the reason that I figured out Google AdWords way back at the beginning was because I looked at my Google AdWords account and I go, the thing you do to make this work is 80/20. This is really just 80/20. And then we did it in Facebook, then we did it in TikTok, then we did it in all kinds of other things. So I'd written a Google book and I'd written a Facebook book. The reason I came out with 80/20 sales and marketing was I would teach people Google's system, and then Google would machine gun thousands of accounts and ban them for no reason at all, or not tell them why. Or the sales reps would call them up and they would rip them off and they would talk them into stuff that they didn't need, and they would lie to them. And like all of these bad things would happen.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, I've hitched my cart to Google. Like, I've ridden this magic carpet ride. I don't like being somebody else's bitch. Okay.
I hear you.
And I thought, but 80/20 is forever. 80/20 lasts like a billion years. If you really understand 80/20, you understand how the universe worked a million years ago. You understand how it's going to work in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to relearn this. And what I started developing was an entire philosophy of business that, whether it's 2015 or 2020 or 2025 or 2030 or 2040 or 2050, it's the same operating system. It's the same set of principles. The names may change, the faces may change, the companies may change, the platforms may change, the technology you change, but the principles don't change. And what you really need to do is commit yourself to learning a set of principles that you don't have to relearn and relearn and relearn.
Yes.
This goes back to the paper mache marketing thing, because the reason there's so much paper mache marketing is, well, if you have to reinvent it every 3 months, then they have to go buy something else from you every 3 months. And then they're a crack addict and you're just stringing them along.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I don't like being a crack addict. I like raising business adults to adulthood and watching them launch and watching them succeed. It is so satisfying. I need a better word, but it is so fulfilling to watch people grow up, learn a set of principles, and then go out and do amazing things and not have to have their nose wiped all the time.
Yeah.
And then they come back and say, thank you. You really helped me.
Yes. I think it sounds like your soul is fed when you see people. And I absolutely love that you figured out it's about universal. Like I study universal law, and you can't fight gravity. Gravity is gravity. It doesn't care if you're an 80-year-old grandmother or a baby. If you step off of a 3-story building, gravity's going to pull you down. It's agnostic. And what this book does for anybody in business is really shed light on the depth of this concept. It is worth learning. I read through it and said afterwards, oh my, I got to go back, which is a sign of a really good book, because instead of going, there was another fluff, right? You were talking about paper mache. There's a lot of paper mache books out there as well. Or just somebody slapped them together and said, here's my thing. Well, this is a book you can return to again and again. And so for listeners who'd like to learn more about you, Perry, get your book. Where do you hang out online?
So we have a special deal. You could go to Amazon and buy it for $20. You can go to perrymarshall.com/podcast. You can buy it for $7, including shipping.
Nice.
And we'll throw in some extra videos. And this book really will change your life. There's a bunch of tools in it. It will help you figure out what your gifts are. It'll help you figure out what you should be doing in marketing and not doing in marketing. And once you get 80-20, once you really get it, you will see it everywhere. It is everywhere. It is all the time. It is 24/7, 365. And anybody in business, you could be an ad agency, or you could be a YouTube creator, you could make candles, or whatever you do. you can find 20 levers everywhere, and you start and you go, we're going to invest our time and money in this very small number of causes that produce huge effects. And we are going to spend our money getting rid of a very small number of problems that cause a very large number of aches and pains. Mm-hmm. And we're going to work both ends of the 80-20 spectrum, rinse, repeat, and business will get better and better and better.
So team, take advantage of this offer. It is a new year, 2025. Start from ground zero. Use this as your beginning. And go to perrymarshall.com/podcast. You know that the link to that will be on Perry's show notes page over at pyppodcast.com. And before we say goodbye, Perry, is there anything you didn't get to say today that you'd like to close us out with?
Know thyself. This goes back to the very beginning where, your greatest superpower probably got you in trouble.
Yeah.
People are going to love you and hate you for basically all the same reasons. And, some people are going to love you and some people are going to hate you. And you just need to be really clear about being who you are and having the right people love you and the right people hate you. And it's okay. And that's how you attract. It's not about being everybody's best friend. It's not about Barney. It's being the person that God made you to be.
That's right. It's playing your position, people. The foundation of this show is you got to show up, be yourself, and you will win in business and life and creativity, whatever it is you're doing. And Perry, you have been such a light today for me. And I know for listeners, I want to thank you for your time. And thank you so much for being called to do this work, because I just can tell that the people that are fortunate enough to work with you really are probably just blown away by how amazing the 80-20 is. And so with that, I'm going to wish you a great holiday season, a wonderful new year, and look forward to continuing to follow your journey.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kayser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.